When you think about war, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Probably soldiers, right? Tanks, trenches, the battlefield. But that's really just one piece of a much, much larger puzzle. Modern conflict is this multi-layered game, and it's fought across these distinct but deeply connected arenas. Today, we're going to deconstruct 3 of those battlefields to really get at how wars are won and lost. All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll hit the ground running in the physical arena. The actual clash of armies. Then we're going to pull back the curtain on the economic arena. That's the hidden engine that really powers the whole thing. And finally, we'll dive into the informational arena, this invisible war of secrets and data that shapes absolutely everything. So let's start where it gets really visceral, the physical arena. Picture this. It's October 1939. The Nazi invasion of Poland is in its final brutal days, and everything is coming down to one last desperate battle. This is war in its rawest form. Okay, so take a look at the tail of the tape for the Battle of Knake. The mismatch here is just stark. On one side, you've got General Kleberg with about 18,000 Polish soldiers. These were cobbled-together units, guys who'd managed to evade capture. And on the other, a German motorized corps of 30,000. This was literally the final defiant stand of the Polish army in the whole campaign. And get this, it wasn't some quick, clean fight. No way. For 4 absolutely brutal days, the Polish forces fought with just incredible grit. They actually threw back the first German assault, they held their lines against bigger and bigger attacks, and they were even launching successful counterattacks on the very last day. They were winning, tactically, right up until the end. So what finally broke them? It all comes down to this number, 17,000. Despite all that courage, 17,000 Polish soldiers had to surrender, and it wasn't because they lost the will to fight. It was because their guns were empty. General Kleberg's final order said it all. They were surrounded and they had 0 ammunition left. The physical battle, it was lost on the supply line. And that right there, that single fact, it leads us to a much, much bigger question. How in the world did one side build such an overwhelming, well-supplied war machine in the first place? To figure that out, we have to leave the mud and the smoke of the battlefield and step into a completely different arena. And that brings us to our second front, the economic arena. This is the vast, hidden engine room of war. It's here, in spreadsheets and trade deals, that conflicts are often won or lost years before a single shot is even fired. So we've all heard of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, right? The infamous non-aggression pact between the Nazis and the Soviets in 1939. But here's the kicker. Just a few days before they signed that, they made another, much quieter deal. And as this analysis from Samantha Carl points out, this economic pact, it was arguably the real key that completely unlocked Germany's war machine. Just look at the terms of this trade. It was incredibly one-sided, strategically speaking. Germany gave away stuff it had plenty of, like coal or stuff that was basically useless for a modern army. We're talking outdated machinery from World War I. And what did they get back? Oh, just the absolute lifeblood of a modern military. Oil for their panzers and Luftwaffe, iron to make steel, grain to feed the troops, and even cotton for their uniforms. You have to understand, this trade wasn't just helpful, it was absolutely crucial. It was a masterstroke. Why? Because Germany was incredibly vulnerable before this deal. Look at these numbers. They could only produce about 1/3 of the oil and iron ore they needed themselves. They were totally dependent on the rest of the world. This one economic deal plugged those massive holes, and in doing so, it basically fueled the blitzkrieg that was about to steamroll across Europe. Okay, so we've got a physical army, powered by a massive economic engine. But both of those are guided, protected, by a third totally invisible arena, the war for information. And this is a battle that isn't fought with bullets or barrels of oil, but with secrets and with codes. And at the very heart of this informational war is something called cryptography. You can think of it as this eternal cat and mouse game. On one side, you have the code makers trying to keep secrets. On the other, you have the code breakers trying to expose them. And for most of human history, it really seemed like one side had the upper hand. Yeah, check this out. Way back in 1841, Edgar Allan Poe, yes, that Edgar Allan Poe, put it perfectly. He basically said that human ingenuity can't create a code that human ingenuity can't also break. And for centuries, he was right. From the Enigma machine all the way back to ancient ciphers, history just kept proving him right. The code breakers always, eventually won. But then, in the 1970s, the entire game flipped on its head with the invention of what's called public key cryptography. And this is the foundation of pretty much all our internet security today. The code makers finally got the advantage. They built codes based on math problems so ridiculously hard that it would take the fastest supercomputers we have today millions of years to solve them. It looked like Poe was finally definitively wrong. But now, a totally new kind of player is stepping onto the field, a quantum computer. And this thing, it doesn't play by the old rules. It doesn't work with simple ones and zeros. It uses the truly bizarre principles of quantum mechanics. And it turns out, those unsolvable math problems that protect our entire digital world, a powerful quantum computer could theoretically chew through them in no time. It threatens to shatter everything. So the big question is, okay, when do we actually need to panic? Well, a cryptographer named Michel Mosca came up with a really simple but powerful formula for this. He calls it his theorem. Let's walk through it. Imagine X is how long you need your secrets to stay secret, let's say 20 years. Y is how long it'll take to switch over to new quantum-safe systems. Let's call that 10 years. And Z is how long until someone builds a big, scary quantum computer that can break everything. Let's say that's just 15 years away. Well, if X plus Y is bigger than Z, you've got a problem. In our case, 20 plus 10 is 30, which is way bigger than 15. Your secrets are already at risk. And for a lot of governments and major companies, we might already be in that time to worry zone. All right, let's bring all three of these arenas together now. Because what we've really been looking at aren't three separate stories, but one big interconnected system of conflict, moving from the very tangible to the completely abstract. So think about it. We saw how a physical battle, boots on the ground, ultimately comes down to something as simple as ammunition. We saw how that ammunition and the entire war machine is only possible because of the economic arena, the resources and the trade deals. And we've seen how all of that, the strategy, the security, everything, depends on the informational arena. Each layer builds on and directs the one below. And all of this leads us to one final, pretty mind-bending question. We've mapped these three arenas of conflict: physical, economic, informational, from World War II right up to the quantum age. But if there's one thing we know for sure, it's that the nature of conflict never stands still. It's always evolving. So what's next? What's the battlefield of tomorrow that we haven't even begun to imagine yet?